Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Links are in the description below. Please show some love of the author and me. On to the show. After completing another task of picking up trash, Xingchen returned to the dormitory. Those that can be composted are naturally thrown into the compost bin to soak. There is already a strange smell in the box at this moment. These vegetable tubers are chopped and thrown in the box. After about 10 days, they are decomposed by nearly half. The decomposed juice can be diluted with water to pour vegetables. But according to rhubarb, these fertilizers are still not enough. When these vegetables are still seedlings, only a little fertilizer is needed. The nutrients in the fertilizer box can still be supplied. But when the vegetable grows to the middle stage, it will grow a lot of roots and leaves. At this time, the adequacy of fertilizer will affect the health of the whole plant. Unhealthy plants will grow much less edible leaves. And in the later stage of vegetable growth, they grow very fast, and the required fertilizer supply will increase exponentially. Close to the current fertilizer, it is enough for a vegetable. Why? That's right, the plant roots picked up from the outside seem to be quite a lot, but each piece is not big, and they are all root parts with low energy content. After these things are decomposed, they can be used by a vegetable. But what about the other 4? Do you still have to go out to pick up trash every day? At this time, rhubarb hesitated and said, Master, in fact, in addition to those plant substances that can be decomposed into fertilizers, the few bags of food in your bag can also be decomposed into fertilizers, but the cost is higher. But if the vegetables here, if the price is higher, it's worth it. Oh? There is such a thing? That's right, food is also a combination of various nutrients, so it's not uncommon for it to be used as fertilizer after decomposition. If I wasted food like this before, I probably wouldn't be willing to give it up. But now I have a lot more money on my hands. If it only consumes a few servings of food, it's not impossible. I don't know how many pieces of food are needed to grow these 5 vegetables, but in order to be able to eat vegetables, let's try. Thinking of this, Stardust still took a piece of common food and chopped it up, then threw it into the compost bin. Leave it alone while composting, just water it every now and then. Afterwards, with a stable source of fertilizer, Xingchen no longer went out to pick up trash, but practiced honestly according to the requirements. In the past 2 days, Xingchen has already fed the 2 boxes of energy bars to rhubarb. With the addition of a total of 40 energy bars, rhubarb's total energy has reached 46%, but it still hasn't been filled. There is no way, there are only so many energy bars to buy. Although Xingchen still has some RAL in his hand, that amount is not even enough for the food expenses of this month's spiritual meal. The most important thing for Xingchen now is to cultivate to a higher level. The rhubarb energy can last for a while, so there is no rush to fill it up. Although rhubarb's energy has not been replenished, but in the current state, the functions that were restricted before have been fully restored. In other words, the detection range of rhubarb has reached a diameter of more than 300 meters, and the storage space can also be used. However, using this space once will consume a certain amount of energy depending on the size and weight of the items to be accessed. Although it is not too much, less than 1%, it is enough for Stardust to feel distressed. Anyway, there is nothing to access, so that space has never been used. Rhubarb has sufficient energy now, so you can slightly adjust the size of the wristband. Originally, Xingchen wore this wristband, but because the ring was a bit big, it was loose to wear, and he worried that it would fall off from time to time. Now the wristband is completely suitable for the thickness of his wrist. Even if he wears the wristband to fight with others, he doesn't have to be afraid that it will fly away. Another 5 days passed in a peaceful life. During these 5 days, Xingchen worked and rested at the same time. Every day he was either practicing or on the way to practice. I usually eat a spiritual meal in the morning, and an enhanced nutrition meal in the evening. After these days of intensive training, according to the data checked by rhubarb, Stardust has already reached the level of human level 7. This is great news. But, there is another bad news, the lol on Stardust is not enough. In the past 8 days, Stardust's daily expenses were almost 80 RAL, plus the money to buy a box of gravel. Stardust now has less than 600 RAL in hand. According to the current standard of living, after 7 or 8 days, there would not be a single Stardust left. No way, in the following days, I can only eat enhanced nutrition meals twice a day. In this way, you may have to eat common meals for 2 days to live. Why? Poor. It is very hard to have no money, but there is also good news. Those few vegetables grew pretty well. Not only did the root system grow from the bottom, but also a stem nearly 2 inches long grew from the top. There are several small leaves on the stem. Shinchan, who hadn't eaten vegetables for a long time, almost wanted to pick off these leaves and throw them in his mouth. But in order to be able to eat vegetables every day in the future, Shinchan endured it. In addition, the seeds of the red eggplant fruits, Stardust also soaked them in water for a whole day according to the method recorded by Rhubarb, and then planted them in another box. That box also contained some sand and gravel, and poured half of it with water. After the seedlings grow, Shinchan will add some fertilizer to it little by little. This can't be sloppy. This kind of young seedlings are most afraid of fertilizing vigorously. If there is less fertilizer, at most it will grow slower. If fertilizing too vigorously, it will die. This morning, Shinchan had breakfast and went to the training ground for class as usual. Today's pre-class training is the same as before. After the training, the instructor asked everyone to conduct a monthly strength test. The strength test is to use a tester to record the various indicators you can achieve, and when your comprehensive strength value reaches a certain level, it can be said that you have reached that level. Many students in the class have been promoted, and so is Zingdust. Estimated according to the numerical value of the muscle explosiveness of Rhubarb probe, Stardust's various indicators should have reached the middle reaches of the 7th human level. However, the difference between the downstream and the midstream is only 3 to 5 points, which is of no great significance. The boy who always practiced against Shinchan before, didn't get promoted this time. He was still at human level 6. There are only 3 or 4 students in the class who are still in the 6th grade. They are all students who don't work hard at ordinary times. Of course, everyone has their own ambitions, and other people's backgrounds may be great. Don't think that they are not as strong as you at the moment, but when you go back to work, maybe they will still be your boss. These things have little to do with Stardust. His goal is to increase his strength as soon as possible and find opportunities to develop on a better planet. Rather than competing with a group of poor people for the few resources on this planet, it is better to look for opportunities elsewhere. After the strength test, it was still the same as before, and the instructor reported today's training items. After everyone has completed the training program, it is time to teach some moves and skills, and then practice sparring. Today's sparring is a bit different, because some students have improved their strength, so the original sparring group needs some adjustments. For example, Shinchan and that strong guy. Shinchan has been promoted, but that guy has not. In this way, the two cannot practice together. The instructor called the students of the same level together, and then reformed the opponents for the sparring. Originally, these things were normal, but this time, the instructor arranged for Shinchan to be a bit troublesome. This guy's name is Hardy, and he belongs to the Gamper gang who stopped Shinchan at the school gate to ask for accessories. Although he is not Gamper's younger brother, they just hang out together, but based on the relationship between them, I am afraid that this guy is going to do something. Sure enough, after the instructor announced the start, Hardy hooked his finger at Shinchan with a grin on the corner of his mouth. It means come on, let's practice hard. It should be said that this Hardy has reached the 7th level of the human level for several months, and his strength is still very strong. But Shinchan didn't mean to be afraid. Just kidding, after being in the waste area for so long, I have killed a bunch of light-spined beetle rats. There have been rat swarms in the waste area before. There have been many big scenes, so are you still afraid of a small bastard making trouble? So Stardust followed Hardy to the sparring area, where a group of opponents had an area equivalent to half the size of a basketball court for sparring. Coincidentally, the sparring area next to it also belonged to Gamper and his team. This is really a narrow road for enemies. But this is in class, and in school. They didn't dare to hit people openly. It's just that during the sparring, the opponent might make some tricks. Seeing this was the case, Xingchen had no choice but to cheer up and deal with it. Originally, I thought that it had been nearly 10 days, and the verbal conflict at that time was just a trivial matter, and the other party would not be so persistent. But judging by the attitude of this guy today, we still have to be careful. After the sparring started, Hardy clenched his fists with both hands, waved his arms, and rushed towards Stardust immediately. However, although Xingchen has just been promoted, his speed is not slow. Seeing Hardy rushing, he just took 3 steps back, and then put on a stance, ready to punch him. It was probably bullying Xingchen, who had just been promoted, and his strength was not used to it. When Hardy rushed forward, he punched hard in the chest, and after being blocked by Xingchen's left fist, he gave another side kick. This time, he was dodged by Stardust. Stardust seems to have a prediction. Of course this is impossible, he has only learned some basic combat skills, and he can't talk about predicting the opponent's next attack position. But it's about the same. It's all thanks to the rhubarb. Low-level warriors like Stardust and Hardy generally have corresponding postures and movements for their shots. For example, if you want to punch, you have to lift your shoulders, and if you kick sideways, your waist will also move accordingly. Rhubarb is to check the opponent's actions and calculate the opponent's next attack method. Then remind Stardust to take precautions. So Hardy's 2 attacks were blocked. However, Hardy did not give up the attack, but opened his bow left and right, launching consecutive attacks. Let's compare it with each other. You should know that this is just a sparring in the classroom, just to make the students more familiar with the fighting skills they just learned. It's not a life and death contest in the arena outside. Hardy's ruthless blows didn't achieve any results. Xingchen blocked these blows with continuous punches under Rhubarb's prompt. The only damage is that the fists and arms used to block the attack are a little sore. Hardy saw that several consecutive ruthless moves were blocked. He was probably a little anxious. He didn't care about other things. He took a step forward and attacked again with a straight kick. However, this straight kick was a bit sloppy. Hardy had just punched a few times, and when he took a sideways step forward, he was not standing firmly, so this straight kick had some flaws. Stardust seized the opportunity, dodged to the right, raised his leg and gave Hardy a blow. Hardy was kicked in the leg, lost his balance, and almost fell to the ground, but he supported himself with his hands before he stood up. Originally, Hardy had lost the battle after receiving this kick. But because it was sparring, Stardust didn't use too much force, so Hardy wasn't injured, probably just a little pain in his leg. It's just that Hardy didn't admit defeat. He stood up straight and rushed over to launch the second round of attacks. This guy is a bit stubborn. Originally, this was a conflict between Gamper and Stardust, and he had a bad relationship with Hardy. Could it be that you are going to come up and play 1, 2, 3? But Xingchen saw Hardy rushing up again, so he could only continue to fight. This time, Hardy didn't know whether it was impatience or an injury to his leg that affected his performance. He had just confronted Xingchen twice before he was hit and fell aside again. This time, Xingchen still didn't ruthless. After all, he was a classmate, and he was still in class. If he really ruthless, that would be a bit unreasonable. But Hardy was a bit ignorant. After standing up this time, he jumped on the spot twice, and then waved his fist to calm down. Then he attacked Xingchen again, using even more ruthless moves. Oh. This guy doesn't cry when he sees the coffin. Let him do it twice, and still play like this. Xingchen also got a little angry. You said this guy is just like this. Obviously he couldn't beat himself twice, and he didn't play hard on his side. Hardy just went down the steps. This time he ran up to get beaten again. Are you addicted to beating? This time, Xingchen didn't keep his hand anymore. After all, he is not a master. Hardy is a warrior with the same strength as Xingchen. If he keeps his hand too many times, if he misses one time, the opponent will take advantage of the loophole. So this time, when Stardust waited for his opponent Hardy to attack, he hit a few times according to the direction of the opponent's attack, and waited for Hardy's attack to pass, and after he got ult in one attack, a block after stopping the attack, he took advantage of the time when the opponent changed his moves, and punched Hardy between the chest and abdomen. This punch used some strength. After receiving this blow, Hardy immediately lost his balance and flew more than 2 meters away. This time Hardy failed to stand up immediately, but sat on the ground covering the injured part and paused for a while before standing up. Hardy stood up and didn't come to fight Xingqian again, probably because he also understood that Xingqian's skill was better than him, and if he continued to fight, he would only suffer. This guy walked aside, said a few words to the instructor, and then the instructor came over to adjust Stardust's dual opponent. Just admit defeat, it's not a big deal anyway, just a little friction. Change people, just change people. But why is it still Gamper's gang? Could it be that they still want to practice again? The opponent who called back was USO, and he was also from Gamper's group. This USO is a little taller than Hardy, and his grade is comparable to Hardy, but his skill is said to be higher than Hardy. Is an opponent not to be underestimated? After the instructor changed the training opponent here, he went to the other side to guide the students' moves. USO entered the sparring area, smiled wildly, and flexed his fists and feet. Then he rushed straight towards Stardust. Stardust just finished a fight, but it didn't take much effort, and there was no need to rest. This time, seeing USO rushing over, he was not nervous, but he quickly dodged to the side when USO was about to rush to him. The target in front of USO's eyes dodged, and he had to adjust his posture immediately. With this adjustment, the aura of the whole body is somewhat incoherent. However, Stardust didn't take advantage of the situation to attack, but waited for USO to charge forward again, and once again spotted Kong and dodged aside. 2 successful dodges in a row made USO's movements a little unsteady. Fortunately, he also often fights and sparring. At this time, he did not rush forward to attack again, but took a few steps back, adjusted his state, and then attacked again. Unlike USO, who was a bit irritable, Stardust is relatively stable at the moment. He defeated Hardy just now, and seeing that USO is not so difficult to deal with now, Stardust is not so nervous anymore. Before, because he had just been promoted, he immediately faced Hardy, who had been promoted for more than a few months. Xingqian was still a little nervous, saying that it was impossible to not feel burdened. However, after these few hand-to-hand attacks, he found that although Hardy and the others were promoted early, they usually practiced a lot, probably because they had not experienced actual combat and had no blood on their hands. If there is a big change, it will be mishandled. At this time, if you take the opportunity to attack, you can easily defeat your opponent. Although Xingqian himself has never killed anyone, he has killed nearly 100 squirrels. The blood he has seen can be packed in gasoline barrels. Naturally, it is not comparable to Hardy and others. USO calmed down, regrouped, and then stepped forward to attack again. Under the reminder of rhubarb, Stardust predicted USO's attack method several times in a row, and blocked the opponent's moves in advance, making USO's moves look very clumsy. It's as if every time USO punches or kicks, he is pushing hard towards the Stardust grid. USO also discovered this, and in desperation launched a triple kick. It's a right kick, then quickly turn around and sweep the left leg, and then after the left leg lands, the right leg kicks sideways again. Under Rhubarb's prompt, Xingdu dodged the first kick, and retreated to avoid the second sweep. When the third kick came, Xingqian raised his leg and kicked USO's calf, and USO lost his balance and fell to the ground. To say that Xingqian didn't kick too hard, otherwise USO's calf might break off. However, although there was no break in this meeting, the injury was serious, and it was a bit difficult to stand firm. Okay, another one done. It's a pity that there are no chicken legs here, otherwise I have to reward myself with one. Xingqian is quite satisfied with his performance just now. But Gamper was a little upset. Losing 2 rounds in a row, but still dealing with a newcomer who just got promoted, this made their small team feel a little embarrassed. Uso's calf was injured, so he couldn't continue to fight, so he had to walk aside to rest. Stardust also took the opportunity to relax on the other side. Although these two opponents are not too difficult to deal with, but the whole body is in a state of tension during the sparring, and this will be over, so naturally they need to adjust. In the distance, the instructor saw the sparring area and stopped again, so he naturally walked over to check the situation. Seeing that Xingqian's opponent was injured again, although neither of them was seriously injured, he was a little annoyed for a while. Xingqian, this is a duel practice at school, and you are just familiar with the moves. Why do you not care about the severity of your shots? You have hurt two classmates. Master Instructor, I don't want to either. They kept attacking fiercely. I gave way several times, but they didn't stop. In the end, I couldn't hold back when I blocked and hit them. If it doesn't work, I have to let them. Let's hit. It's all sparring. Why do classmates keep attacking you ruthlessly? Don't make any excuses. If you play like you, no one will spar with you in the future. Stardust was also a little speechless for a while. The instructor doesn't know what's going on here. It's impossible to report here that the other party failed because of blackmail, so let's play tricks during sparring. If others don't admit it, there is no empirical evidence. I should have asked Rhubarb to record the situation at that time. At this moment, both of Xingqian's opponents were injured and had to rest off the court, and there was no new duel for a while, so Xingqian could also go to the side to rest. However, Gamper couldn't stand it any longer. He put aside his own duel practice and came over to the instructor and said, Master Instructor, why don't I practice duel with Xingqian? My level is higher, and I can master the strength and moves better. Alright, I can take a heavy blow from Stardust. The instructor originally thought about adjusting the opponents of these groups for a while, but when he saw Gamper coming over and saying this, he agreed after thinking about it for a while. I go. Stardust is getting a little annoyed. You instructor, is there shit in your head? If others say that you can control the strength of your hand, just believe it. Did you know that those two were with him just now? This time, Gamper will fight me alone at the 8th level. Once he hits hard, I will be injured. Are you responsible when you look back? However, there was no room for Stardust's objection. After the instructor agreed to Gamper's proposal, Gamper went to the training ground here. The instructor also ordered Xingqian to go on stage immediately and start sparring. Xingqian also had no choice but to return to the training ground. Here Gamper smiled at Xingqian and raised his hand as a greeting, but he couldn't hide the viciousness in his eyes. It's just that the instructor is behind him, so he can't see these. Seeing this, Xingqian could only step forward and deal with it carefully. After the practice started, Gamper was the first to attack, because Gamper's overall physical stats were a little higher than Stardust's, so the speed and strength of his shots were stronger. This makes it possible for Rhubarb to make a prediction, leaving less time for Stardust to deal with it, and because the opponent is stronger, even if Stardust blocks the opponent's moves in the right direction, he will be punished because of the strength of the opponent. Some damage. Gamper's style of play is to overwhelm others with force and deceive others with speed. With faster speed and stronger strength, keep hitting the opponent until the opponent accumulates small damage to big damage, and finally loses. Xingqian also saw the opponent's strategy, but this is a conspiracy, whether you know it or not, unless you can interrupt this continuous attack and make the opponent suffer more serious injuries, otherwise this matter it is also unsolvable. What Stardust can do now is to rely on Rhubarb's precise prediction, and stick to his defense line with the most accurate response, so as to minimize the damage he suffers. Then wait for the opponent to reveal his flaws, and the last blow will kill him. On the training ground, Gamper continued to attack Stardust. Just now, 2 younger brothers were injured and lost, which put him under some pressure. However, Stardust is 1 level lower than him, and he has the upper hand in all values, so he attacks with this style of play. It's just that after more than a dozen punches and kicks, Stardust didn't suffer too much damage. This is due to Rhubarb's precise prediction. After Xingqian has this cheating device, he knows the opponent's possible attack position in advance and defends. but because the opponent's strength is stronger. Xingdust's strategy is to relieve his strength every time he defends, and then block. In this case, Gamper will cause less damage, and Stardust is waiting for an opportunity to counterattack. Gamper's continuous attacks were ineffective, and he was a little impatient, but he knew that Stardust was difficult to deal with, so he didn't mess up his position, but took 2 steps back to adjust the pace of attack. Then Gamper stepped forward again and began to attack with legs continuously. The strength on the legs was stronger than the fists, which made Stardust's defense even more difficult. The instructor saw Gamper's leg attack and shouted, "You need to raise your legs higher, and the speed should be faster. Otherwise, it's easy to be blocked." "I'm stupid." Stardust is a little angry. "You bastard, if you can't see him attacking and confiscating power, will you hurt me? I really thought it was a duel." At this time, Gamper's 7 or 8 consecutive heavy kicks had already caused the pain in Stardust's left forearm, which was used to block, and he was about to lose consciousness. Xingchen felt that he couldn't go on like this anymore, so he was heartbroken, and before Gamper kicked again, he rushed forward, with his left forearm blocking the front calf of Gamper's side kick. Because the timing of the block was chosen well, this leg did not explode with the strongest force. However, Xingchen still broke a bone in his forearm due to this kick. Xingchen took the initiative to attack and stretched out his forearm. Of course he didn't want to block the blow, but took advantage of Gamper's kick being blocked, and hit Gamper hard with his right fist. Side of the knee joint. This blow exploded with Stardust's strongest force. Although Gamper's joints were not broken, they were slightly dislocated. Gamper was hit hard by this style, and his body was unstable and he fell sideways and backwards. But Xingchen suffered a loss just now. How could he let Gamper go so easily? Here, Xingchen's hind legs rushed forward suddenly, and an iron mountain leaned towards Gamper's side. It was said to be an iron mountain, but this time Xingchen did not rush forward with his shoulders, but lifted his little arm, attacking the opponent's armpit with the elbow. This blow was hard enough, including the strength of the forward charge and the lethality of the elbow. After receiving this blow, Gamper immediately screamed and flew backwards. It flew out. Stardust's blow was quite powerful. That is to say, the people here are generally strong and have high physical fitness. Otherwise, with this blow, it is possible to die. But Stardust's blow wasn't so good. Gamper probably broke a few ribs. While Gamper was flying out, Xingchen hadn't finished his move yet. He saw the direction Gamper was flying out from, and Xingchen stepped forward a few steps in a row, ready to give him another attack with an iron knee flying down. But Stardust didn't make the last blow. The instructor next to him saw that something was wrong, so he rushed over and pushed Xingchen away. It also interrupted Stardust's moves. Xingchen was pushed by the instructor and fell to the side. But fortunately, the force of the side push was not too great. Xingchen rolled on the spot to release the force, and then stood up. The instructor also supported Gamper at this time. Seeing that his leg was injured, his ribs were probably broken too. I was also angry for a while, and cursed at Xingchen. What did you do? It doesn't matter how serious you are when you practice, you just hurt 2 classmates, and this broke the ribs of others. You don't want to graduate? Xingchen looked at the instructor, but silently raised his arm, and said to the instructor, "Master instructor, my arm was broken first. Could it be that I am the only one injured, but can't fight back?" Naturally, the instructor couldn't say that he was only allowed to be beaten but not resisted. Seeing that Xingchen's forearm was also broken, he could only let people take Xingchen and Gamper to the infirmary for treatment. At this time, many students nearby also saw the situation here, and they talked about it for a while. Gamper's 2 accomplices were slightly injured, so they went forward to help Gamper to the infirmary together when they saw this situation. Seeing that the instructor had nothing else to say, Xingchen also turned around and walked towards the infirmary. It's just that Xingchen was stopped before he even walked out of the practice field. This is a slightly stout girl. This woman also saw the fight just now. But I didn't hate Stardust because he hurt his classmate. Instead, he stopped Xingchen and said, "Xingchen, I didn't expect you to be quite strong. You actually defeated the 8th level Gamper just after you got promoted. I promise you to follow me in the future. The expression that I like you is your blessing. Xingchen was a little stunned for a moment. There must be something wrong with this girl. Let me follow you, or do you only reward me with my qualifications because I am strong? Who do you think you are? Although these words made Xingchen very upset, but they were all classmates, and the fight was caused by verbal conflicts before, which made Xingchen a lot more cautious when speaking. He just said to the female classmate in a light tone, "Student, I was injured just now and need to go to the infirmary for treatment, please get out of the way." The girl was taken aback, and said in disbelief, "I mean, you can follow me and pursue me in the future. Didn't you understand?" These words made Xingchen even more speechless. I feel that this woman is really sick. Xingchen shook his head to express that he was not interested, walked around the girl and went to the infirmary. After hearing these words, many students nearby couldn't help laughing when they saw that Xingchen directly rejected the girl's proposal. Seeing this situation, the girl's face turned red with embarrassment, and she walked aside. On the way to the infirmary, Xingchen was still thinking, what's wrong with this woman, and he allowed himself to pursue her, just like she looks like. It can barely be seen that it is a woman. How confident are you? But as he walked, he suddenly remembered that the original body seemed to want to pursue this girl. But that's because this girl's family has some strength and can help arrange her career path. It is also one of the ways out that the original body thought about for future employment, but because the previous strength was too poor, it has long been rejected by others. Unexpectedly, defeating Gamper this time made the other party bring up this matter again. Why? It's all about trying to find a good job. But my future plans are different from before, so naturally, I don't need to flatter these people anymore. Not long after, Xingchen came to the school's infirmary. There are 5 large rooms in the school's infirmary that can provide medical services. However, because there are relatively few people who need medical treatment, there are now 2 rooms, one for medical services and the other for backup. At this moment, Gamper has been helped by 2 buddies to one of the medical rooms, waiting for the school doctor's diagnosis and treatment. The other 2 guys also had some minor injuries, although major treatment is not needed, but it is inevitable to apply some wound medicine to promote blood circulation and remove blood stasis. The nurse at the reception saw that there were 3 wounded patients receiving treatment in that room, so she took Stardust to the spare medical room. It is said to be a spare room, but the equipment and the like inside are complete. Stardust naturally didn't care, and it would be more comfortable if he didn't stay with Gamper and the others. There are several nurses in the infirmary, but only one school doctor is on duty. Gamper and the others came early, so they were naturally at the front of the queue. They didn't go to Xingchen to heal their arms until they finished their work there. However, the nurse still conscientiously asked Xingchen where he was injured and whether it was serious or not. This is because if Xingchen's injury is more serious, the doctor will not come in time, which will delay his illness. Xingchen told the truth about his injury. The nurse saw that Xingchen's injury was not serious, so she prepared the equipment that would be used later, and then went to call for a doctor. The doctor is still treating Gamper and others, so naturally he won't come over so soon. But Xingchen is not in a hurry, just waiting here. After more than 10 minutes, the school doctor on duty came in. Look at the nameplate pinned to the chest, it is still the head of the school infirmary. That is, the boss in the infirmary of this school. The school doctor is a middle-aged female doctor, probably because there are relatively few things here, and she is relatively free on weekdays, so she is a little fatter. After the school doctor came in, he first checked Xingchen's forearm, and then took a photo with an instrument. He quickly concluded that a bone in the forearm was broken, and he needed to use an instrument to adjust the bone's position and fix it with a splint. And use some kind of potion that accelerates bone healing, and then pay attention to rest. This conclusion was drawn very quickly, and there are special instruments for treatment. That kind of potion is naturally handled by the nurse. However, the head of the school medical office did not leave, but asked, "I don't see a school with such a serious injury in a month or so. Why did you suddenly come out today with 2 fractures?" The other 2 were also injured. It's light. I asked those 3 people, they all said that they were injured during sparring. How about you? You also got injured during sparring? Yes, sir, this is also an injury I got during duel training. What's going on? Don't tell me that the 4 of you were all wounded by the same person. Then the person who made the shot may be punished. Ah. Of course we were not injured by the same person. To be precise, mine was injured by the classmate who had a broken bone, and the 3 of them were injured by me. The head of the room frowned and said, "What's the matter with your sparring? The shots are so heavy. Don't you know that this is sparring? It's really a real combat. If you are all messing around like this, I'm afraid it will be this time, they will all be punished." My lord, I've been wronged. I don't want to fight like this. Xingqian saw that the lord was more serious and responsible, and he wasn't a fool who listened to one side and believed in another, so he told the cause of the incident one by one. I said it again, including the matter that Gamper asked for accessories from himself before and was preparing to block himself outside school a few days ago. After hearing Xingqian's words, the head of the room naturally couldn't believe it right away, but he still said, "I know about this matter, and I will have someone investigate it later. If it is true as you said, then the school will seriously." Afterwards, the head of the school doctor's room seemed to be talking to himself. "So, those 3 students have some problems with their conduct, so we can teach them a lesson while they are injured." After finishing speaking, he turned around and left. This room. Xingqian was a little confused. What does this mean? Not long after, I heard the pain from the next room, and the painful cries of the 3 of Gamper came here from time to time. There is also the nurse's scolding. Bear with it, the treatment is so painful. If you want to be comfortable, you should make less trouble and fight less. Forehead. What does this mean? Just when Xingqian was disturbed listening to the noise made by the 3 Gampers, a nurse came in and connected the instrument to Xingqian's arm. This is the beginning of treatment for Stardust's arm. Xingqian thought that Gamper's fracture was so painful, and his side was probably the same, so he also made an expression of trying to endure the pain. This scene made the treating nurse laugh. The nurse also asked Xingqian what he was doing. He hadn't started treatment yet. Did it hurt that much? Xingqian was embarrassed, so he said that it hurts so much to see their injuries next door, and I'm afraid it's also very painful on my side, so I want to try my best to bear it. The nurse couldn't help laughing and said, the 3 of them were confessed by the head of the room, and the pain sensitivity of the treatment equipment was specially increased, so their pain perception was amplified. If there was only a little pain, it will now become more painful. It hurts 5 points. The head of the room said that this is a punishment for their misbehavior. You haven't adjusted here, so it won't hurt so much. Don't act like a ghost, you're so ridiculous. Forehead. It turned out that this was the case. The head of the room is a person who hates evil, like a vengeful. Think about it, if I hadn't explained the whole story clearly just now, I'm afraid I would have been punished like this. It's dangerous. After adjusting the instrument for about 10 minutes, Xingqian's arm bone has been restored to its position, and then the entire forearm is covered with a piece of artificial soft material, and then a forearm-shaped splint is placed on it. After a few more minutes, the splint was firmly fixed on Xingqian's forearm. After such a whole set of operations, the treatment of Xingqian's fracture is considered complete, and after 5 days, come back and remove the splint. Of course, the school doctor will evaluate the growth of the arm at that time. At this time, the head of the room also came in, and said to Xingqian, you have been seriously injured this time. I see that you are an educational assistance student, and the conditions at home should not be very good, so I will specially approve you for 5 days. Nutritional meal, you should strengthen your nutrition these few days. You will recover faster. But try not to do any exercise, be careful of bone displacement, and it will be more troublesome if you pick it up again. I will find someone to ask you for 5 days off from the instructor. You rest first. There are such benefits? The 5-day spiritual meal, this is really profitable. Xingqian was very grateful to see the head of the office taking care of him like this. But the head of the room didn't pay too much attention to Xingqian's thanks, he just said this and left. After Xingchen finished his treatment here, he went straight back to his dormitory. If you're enjoying my content, please consider donating a coffee or checking out my shirts on TeePublic. Back in the dormitory, Xingchen had nothing to do. He could only lie on the bed in a daze. It's not even noon yet, and he's only done a quarter of his day's exercise, so there's no room for Xingchen's energy. No way, I can't do strenuous activities when my arm is broken, and I can't do any exercises that strengthen constitution. But in this way, apart from walking around, he can only be in a daze in the dormitory. It's a pity that there are no mobile phones here, no internet, and the spare time life is extremely boring. I don't know if other planets are as boring as this one. No wonder there are many cultivating lunatics. I'm afraid they are all free. Xingchen didn't have any extracurricular books at hand, so he could only lie on the bed and watch the various animal, plant and mineral information stored by Rhubarb. Fortunately, Rhubarb saved enough information, and Stardust checked it all afternoon and only saw less than 1,000th of it. It seems that there are things to pass the time in these 5 days. After reading the animal and plant information all afternoon, all the plants in front of Stardust seemed to be fluttering, and it took a while to return to normal after stopping. It's time for dinner. The head of the room said that he had approved a 5-day spiritual meal for himself. This can't be delayed. If you don't get a portion, it will be a loss of 60 rals. In order to receive today's spiritual meal, Xingchen came to the restaurant on time and received the meal with his campus pass card. Sure enough, the head of the room was right. After checking the information in the card, the staff gave Xingchen a spiritual meal and a serving of water. It seems that I can receive the spiritual meal in the past few days, which is also an unexpected joy after the injury. Originally, because Xingchen didn't have enough lol, he could only eat common meals for the remaining half a month. Now that he has the special approval from the head of the room, he can finally continue to nourish himself. Xingchen feels that his own constitution is no worse than others, but because of the lack of investment in diet in recent years, it is lower than others. It's not that Yuanshan didn't want to invest, but he didn't recruit if he didn't have money. Xingchen finished his spiritual meal in the dining room, and returned to the dormitory with the water. Recently, Stardust has started to buy an extra serving of water with meals and bring it back. This is because it takes too much water to grow vegetables. This is just a few small vegetable seedlings that consume so much water. If there are too many plants, how much water will be needed? After returning to the dormitory, Xingchen filled each of the 2 vegetable growing boxes with half a portion of water, and poured the remaining water into the composting box. After such a toss, 1 portion of water is gone, that is, 6 rals for pouring vegetables. After fiddling with the vegetable seedlings, Xingchen covered the vegetable growing box, sat on the bed and began to adjust his breath with luck. It is about using consciousness to mobilize the energy in the body to move along the path of the sky. During this period, you must keep your consciousness clear, and the energy in your body must be controlled very accurately, so that it cannot flow into other places, otherwise you will be insane. Of course, the level of Stardust is still very low now. Even if Qi enters the fork, it's not a big problem. After running for 36 weeks, Xingchen stopped practicing and started exercising his legs in the dormitory, but these exercises were all low-intensity activities, and they didn't affect his arms. Wait until the event is over, Time to sleep. It's not too late at this time, but Xingchen has nothing to do, so he has no choice but to sleep. 5 days passed in a flash. In the past 5 days, apart from going to the restaurant for meals, Xingchen spends the rest of the time in the dormitory looking at various materials stored by De Huang. From time to time I will get up and stretch my muscles. In the first 2 days, Xingchen played with the vegetable seedlings from time to time, but after watering too much and killing a red eggplant seedling, Rhubarb reminded that if the vegetable seedlings were frequently watered, the premature death rate would be very high. That is to say, these vegetable seedlings will hang. Having said that, Xingchen stopped a little and didn't take care of the vegetable seedlings too frequently. Of course, there is no shortage of care in the morning and evening. The vegetables that Stardust is currently planting are 5 green vegetables, and they are growing. There are 4 red eggplant fruits. Originally there were 6 seeds, but only 5 seedlings came out, and the other one didn't survive. Because Stardust watered too much, another one died, leaving only 4 seedlings. These are the sources of Stardust's first pot of gold. As long as it can be planted properly, it should be sold for several thousand rals. During the rest of the past few days, Xingchen originally thought about whether to go to the waste area to pick up some old accessories, but he was reluctant to part with the daily spiritual meal, so he didn't pass it in the end. This spiritual meal is eaten twice a day, and the sum is 120 rals, and it would be reluctant to exchange it for others. After these 5 days of rest and nourishing spiritual meals, Xingchen's figure seems to have grown a lot. He usually trains with a lot of exercise every day. Once he rests for a few days, the nutrients cannot be consumed and will naturally accumulate in his body. Fortunately, I will end my vacation today, otherwise I really can't stand it. The precondition for ending the vacation is the evaluation results from the school doctor. If Xingchen's injury has healed, then he will naturally resume normal studies. If not, he will have to rest for a few more days. After eating the last spiritual meal provided by the school in the morning, Xingchen came to the infirmary again, and naturally a nurse arranged for Xingchen to wait for the school doctor to come for an examination. Maybe it was because Xingchen's injury wasn't serious in the first place, or maybe it was because the spiritual meal was too effective. In short, Xingchen's fracture injury was checked by another school doctor, and it was confirmed that he had fully recovered. After the injury is healed, the splint and other things on the arm will naturally have to be removed. The nurse stepped forward and quickly completed the removal work, and then Stardust can start normal campus life again. Stardust rushed to the training ground of his own class, and the students in the class have already started their daily fixed project activities. But Gamper hasn't come here yet. His injury is serious, and the leave granted by the school doctor is 12 days. And it is best for Gamper to rest in bed, not to mention strenuous activities. Even ordinary walking activities should be minimized. Gamper's 2 buddies have already come here, and they only rested for 1 day because of their minor injuries, but these 2 didn't dare to look at Xingchen when they finished their own training programs, for fear that Xingchen would give them another ruthless blow. Xingchen reported to the instructor, but this instructor has changed. The previous instructor was fine to teach the junior students, because of his mishandling. This is the new instructor of the class, and he looks more friendly. The instructor asked that Xingchen's injury had healed, and asked him to complete today's sports with everyone. This is naturally no problem. Xingchen has been holding back for several days, and this time he can finally use his strength. Next is the teaching skills and actual combat training sessions. The instructor rearranged the opponents for the sparring. This time, Stardust's opponent was not from Gamper's group, but this student felt timid during the duel practice. Was it because he was afraid that Stardust would break his bones? Not so. Xingchen's new opponent was probably afraid that he would give him a few ruthless blows, so he was always a little timid in the practice. However, after several hours of sparring, I finally felt relieved, and I was no longer as nervous as I was at the beginning. Because he didn't train well for 5 days, Xingchen showed a little bit of fat on his body. So after being able to train normally, apart from completing the training items specified by the coach, Xingchen took the initiative to practice many additional items in order to consume the energy accumulated in his body in the past few days. After the day's training, Xingchen went to eat dinner, and after a short rest, he went to the training venue he often went to for an evening training session. This is Stardust's daily schedule. After more than 10 days in this way, the school day of this month is over, and then there will be another 5-day rest day. If Xingchen's wallet is relatively full, then he will continue to train during the rest days in order to break through earlier, but it's a pity that he only has a poor 100 or so rals in his wallet. If he doesn't make any money during the rest days, he can only eat common meals for the next month. For this reason, Xingchen had no choice but to drive his commuter car back to his home in the waste area on the afternoon of the last school day. Of course, he put the box of that dish in the space of rhubarb and took it home with him. Together with those things, there are nearly 30 bags of common food and 50 servings of water. Food is provided by the school, water is not only provided by the school. Xingchen also spent money to buy some. No way, growing vegetables is a big water user, so it won't work if you don't prepare more. Of course, the common food Stardust received was not limited to these, and there were more than a dozen common foods left in the dormitory, just in case there is any urgent need in the future. After returning to his home, Xingchen lay down comfortably for a while, and then got up to play with those vegetables. After such a long period of growth, the 5 green vegetables have grown up, each of which has about 7 or 8 leaves, but the situation is not right. It seems that a long stem grows from the center of the green vegetables, as if it is about to bloom. Let Rhubarb check the information to find out that the green vegetables that have been cut down and grown again, often after they take root and grow leaves again, they will make saving seeds to reproduce the next generation as their top priority. In other words, these green vegetables are ready to bloom and bear seeds. Forehead. This is also a good thing. Originally, these green vegetables came from the roots halfway, and they didn't look very healthy. Although they grow a lot of leaves, the size is not up to standard. But if the seeds can be produced, then there should be no such defects when planting next time. Rhubarb calculated based on the growth of these vegetables, and in about 17 days, these vegetables will produce qualified seeds. How many seeds can be produced, but there is no way to accurately deduce it. In this case, this time the green vegetables can only produce seeds as the first priority. As for the 4 red eggplants, they are growing well, and are now half a meter high. Because these red eggplants grow too tall, the vegetable growing box I bought before is not enough. It just so happened that Xingchen had already returned home at this moment, so he asked Hua La to weld a separate large box with various plates on hand in a warehouse at home, and use it as an area for growing vegetables. The vegetable growing area of the new work is not big, only about 7 or 8 square meters, and the height is about 2 meters. Did not dare to make too much space. The main reason is that the space is large, and the water consumption will be higher. The water that is watered every day is not enough to evaporate. With such a large space, there is no shortage of water. Xingchen asked Walla to make the box closed, leaving an entrance and exit. Except for Xingchen to take care of the vegetables for a while, it is usually closed to reduce water. Consume. Sprinkle a layer of gravel on the ground of the space, and then transplant the 4 red eggplants into the space. Those few greens were not moved. First, the green vegetables are not too tall, so the box can be put down temporarily. Second, these 5 green vegetables are in the critical period of flowering and fruiting. It is best not to move them if they cannot be moved. After finishing all this, Xingchen went to rest early. Early the next morning, Xingchen took all the younger brothers and headed for the waste dump area in a suspension car. After almost half an hour, Xingchen came to the newest waste dump area, but there was no space left for Xingchen because everyone else had occupied their seats. Who didn't come over for the latest waste dump? There was no land here, so Stardust had to go to the area where the waste was piled up last time. Although the scavengers have filtered it here, there are also some accessories and metals that will be missed. But because Xingchen is alone here, he must be careful of the attack of the stinger rat. Fortunately, Rhubarb now has more than 40% energy, and the detection range is full power and the whole area, which means it has a diameter of more than 300 meters. In addition, the detection of life biomass can reach a diameter of nearly 500 meters. In other words, in this area, all the gorillas will be found by Rhubarb, which greatly reduces the risk of Stardust being attacked. As long as you are careful, there will be no problem. The resource exploration range of more than 300 meters is already very large. An area of several square kilometers like this can be inspected after just 2 laps on the suspension vehicle. In this area, there are about 31 spaceship parts with good integrity. In addition, there are more than 300 kilograms of various pure metals, but these pure metals belong to different types, and the number of each type is not much. But now Xingchen didn't pick any more, and ordered Rhubarb to send the location of the spaceship's accessories to the little brother who was working, and then he himself was on the sidelines to be vigilant. Naturally, these spaceship accessories are taken next to those that can be used by the small spaceship of Stardust, and after those are taken, it is the turn of other spaceships to use. Anyway, if you don't use the accessories you get, you can exchange them for money, and it's not a loss. After half a day's work, the accessories in this area were taken out, and some of the pure metals were also taken. But this will gather too many thorns, Stardust must leave. This area can't be done anymore, but this is not the only storage area in the past. In the past month, those garbage transport spaceships have come at least 3 or 4 times, and naturally, there are 3 or 4 areas that have been picked up by scavengers, except for the area that those people are picking up now. There are 2 other areas where Stardust can go treasure hunting. Of course, this treasure is not very valuable. Going to the next storage area, Xingchen first took De Huang to explore the entire area, and then hid himself in the warehouse of a junked spaceship, letting the working boys go to work. There is no way, this will be a hot period, the outdoor temperature is too high, we can't live with people. Robots don't matter. Those stinging rats were also in no mood to trouble Stardust, because of the heat. It's a lot safer. By the time the hot season passed, it had been more than 2 hours. During this period, Xingchen's younger brother had collected all the parts of the spaceship, and only a little of the pure metals that could be recycled. But this time the squirrels didn't come around, and Xingchen was not in a hurry, he just kept an eye on the surrounding situation, and was prepared to dodge immediately if there was any danger. The distribution of these stinging rats is also uneven. I don't know if they also have the habit of occupying territory. Anyway, during the time that Xingchen stayed here, those stinging rats did not come over, and Xingchen was also happy and leisurely, and did not take the initiative. Provoke them. After all the benefits in this area were harvested, Xingchen led the younger brothers to move to the next storage area. However, this area is a bit troublesome. Xingchen took De Huang to investigate the situation in the entire area. Not long after he asked the younger brother to start work, De Huang reported that there were a few stinging rats in the vicinity. Xingchen doesn't care if there are a few, but he is afraid of the other party's rocking mouse. This is the world of gorillas, and there are many such creatures scattered around. If there is one infestation, there are often several wandering around in an area of hundreds of square meters. If it doesn't find you, it's fine. Once it finds you and can't deal with you, it will make a sound that humans can't hear, calling the brothers and sisters around to beat you together. Anyway, Rhubarb found that there was a stinger rat nearby, so Xingchen became careful, and first ordered his younger brother to keep the spaceship parts with better integrity first, and at this time he didn't care whether the spaceship parts were his own small spaceship parts. This time, as long as the spaceship accessories are in hand, it doesn't matter whether they are suitable for their own use or not, and if they are not suitable, they can be sold for money. It's better than being surrounded by gorillas and not being able to find the same accessories. When the surrounding squirrels increased to 20, Xingchen decisively recruited his younger brothers, then got on the levitation vehicle and left here. If you don't run at this time, you may not have a chance to run, either by your own life to stay, or by your own little brother here. At that time, if the things are not collected, if you pay for some things, it will be a loss. Get out of this area. Stardust didn't go home directly, but wandered around in the nearby storage areas. The scraps from these storage areas were pulled over earlier, and they may have been piled here for several months. If there are good things, there may be some, but there are fewer. Moreover, there are more spike rats living here, and the risk is greater. But Stardust has no other choice at this time, so he can only look here to see if he can catch a leak. After working for more than 2 hours, Xingchen and his younger brother found a dozen more spaceship accessories, which was not very efficient. This is because he has to avoid the beatings of a large group of gorillas from time to time. By the way, there are quite a few of these thorn rats, and I don't know when they will be massacred again. After this day's collection, there are now 84 spaceship accessories and more than 700 kilograms of pure metal on the suspension vehicle. This day's harvest is not bad, others can collect a quarter of this amount in a day, and it's not every day that they have such a harvest. Of course, others mainly collect pure metals, Spaceship accessories are only collected when they meet better ones. Unlike Stardust, which has the help of rhubarb, it is easy to find accessories with good integrity. Back home, Zingdust asked Walla to sort the spaceship accessories into categories, put the ones that can be used on his own spaceship in one pile, and put the accessories used in other spaceships in another pile. After these few collections, there are more than 90 accessories that can be used on Shinchan's small spaceship, and of course there are a few of them that are duplicates. It's just that there are more than 7,000 pieces of accessories used in the entire small spaceship, and what Stardust collected by himself is just over 1%. There is a long way to go. Most of the pure metals stored in Shinchan's house are not enough for one unit. It may be very difficult to get enough in a short time. At present, the fastest way to get money is to find more spaceship accessories. If you don't need it, take it to Jylland there to sell. Why? It's annoying not being able to make money. Let's go to bed first. Stardust went to bed early. I have to go to work the next day. The next morning, after Shinchan got up and finished eating and drinking, he set off with his younger brothers again. The first stop this time is still the area where the scavengers gather. I went there to see if there is a waste transport ship coming over today. Of course, I have to grab the site if I come over. Fortunately, Stardust is lucky. Today is the day when the spaceship comes over, and everyone is waiting outside the new storage area to unload. Stardust gets in on the action too. Anyway, just wait. Of course, not just waiting. While waiting for the cargo to be unloaded, Shinchan found a few familiar scavengers and asked them if they had found any suitable accessories for his small spaceship recently. This question is really rewarding. These people have more or less private possessions, and those who have been too long ago have probably already sold them, but the spaceship accessories they have collected recently are still in their hands. Stardust made an appointment with them, and later he exchanged similar spaceship parts with them. Of course, this kind of exchange must be rewarded for Stardust. It's not as simple as a one-to-one exchange. The waiting time was not long, and the spaceships unloaded the waste and flew away. Shinchan and the others are frantically looking for territory again. This time, rhubarb's function is to complete the detection range, so the search efficiency is higher, and Stardust quickly occupied the best area. Of course, this best means that there are more and better spaceship accessories in the area, rather than the most pure metals. Occupying the site, still the original routine, Rhubarb sent the directions of various accessories and pure metals to the two younger brothers who were working. Next, Shinchan was resting aside, supervising the little brother's work. The site that Shinchan chose today is really good. There are more than 70 pieces of various spaceship accessories, and about 23 pieces are suitable for small spaceships. This number is not bad. Stardust could collect 40 or 50 accessories in one area yesterday, but that was a whole stacking area. That is the total area occupied by these scavengers today. Now there are so many in Shinchan's own territory, it can be regarded as a miss. There are a lot of accessories, and it takes a lot of time for the younger brothers to collect them. After the hot part of the day passes, these spaceship accessories are collected, and then the younger brothers start collecting pure metals. Although there aren't too many pure metals in this area, it's best to pick them up if you don't want to eat the meat around your mouth for nothing. After another 2 hours, nearly 200 kilograms of pure metal were also obtained. After finding the good things in this area, Shinchan is not idle. Other scavengers have also collected some spaceship accessories during the day, so Shinchan naturally looks around to see if there is any suitable for his own small spaceship. If there is, it is natural to change it first. If the accessories are all of the same price, when exchanging, Stardust will use a few kilograms of pure metal. After several exchanges, Shinchan has 7 more accessories for small spaceships in his hands. After such an operation, there are now more than 120 compatible accessories on the small spaceship. Wait until later to exchange it with other people. 150 pieces are also available. Great progress. After collecting the spaceship accessories in the new storage area, Stardust didn't waste time here. After making an appointment with others to bring the spaceship parts to exchange tomorrow, he took his younger brother and flew towards the old storage area. The old dumping area is not one place, and in recent years, waste has been dumped several times a month. These waste products are sometimes piled up in several layers, and sometimes they are piled up in pieces. After the scavengers filter it, there are still some things left. Stardust's target now is these fish that slipped through the net. But it was a bit late today. Xingchen only took rhubarb to explore 2 areas, collected more than 10 spaceship accessories, and the sky darkened. When the time is up, I have to go home quickly, otherwise it will not be so comfortable to go on the road after the temperature drops. When Xingchen returned home, he first checked the vegetables he had planted. The green vegetables planted in the box are in good condition, the flower buds have already leaked out, and the estimated seeding time estimated by rhubarb is only an approximate day, and they still have to be carefully looked after these days, so don't expect any surprises. The 4 red eggplant plants are growing well, and can grow about 2 centimeters in a day, but I don't know if it is too tall. I have to check the relevant information later. I poured some water on the 2 vegetables, and then sealed the box as it was. There are light sources in the box. Although they are old, they imitate sunlight well, and they should be able to meet the needs of the plants. Now that the 2 kinds of vegetables have grown relatively large, at least 1.5 or even 2 servings of water a day is enough. However, in order to collect money for selling vegetables in the future, these investments are necessary. The next day, Xingchen got up early and glanced at the vegetables. Yes. Looking good. After ordering Walla to guard the house well, Xingchen led the scavengers team out the door. However, there are some spaceship accessories on the suspension car today, which are to be exchanged with other people. According to the situation asked yesterday, those people will bring more than 40 pieces of accessories that can be used on small spaceships. So Stardust brought 50 accessories that didn't fit the small spaceship to exchange. At that time, the exchange ratio will be determined according to the situation. By the time Stardust arrived, many people had already started working on the new storage area. But the younger brothers are the ones who do the work. Generally, scavengers are just seekers. When they find something suitable, the younger brother will go out to collect it, and I will look for the next place. Stardust exchanged things with the few people who made an appointment yesterday. Now there are over 40 more available accessories. I can't just sit around. I only visited 2 areas yesterday, and I haven't seen the rest of the area yet. Today's task is to take my little brother around to collect accessories. Except for the hot season, I never idle for a moment. Of course, this result is there. There are more areas to run, so the harvest is naturally more. Stardust has obtained more than 70 accessories, plus more than 200 kilograms of pure metal. There are not many harvests of this pure metal. After all, it is an area filtered by so many people. It's not bad to have this harvest. Going home at night and putting away the booty, Xingchen fell asleep and went to a lot of places this day, and he had to be careful if the stingrays gathered to make trouble. He was exhausted physically and mentally. But Xingchen is a young man, and his body recovered quickly. After a night's sleep, he went out full of energy again. Stardust's task today is still to explore the old storage area. These storage areas are really too vast. If these scraps were not often stacked several times, Stardust might not be able to find them for several years. Now Stardust is looking for areas that have been piled up in the past year or so. After finding these places, Stardust is going to check those old areas that have been around for a long time. Anyway, collecting more accessories is a victory. By the last day of the rest day, Stardust had harvested 217 suitable spaceship accessories, and 337 other types of spaceship accessories. This is a good number. Although the completion rate of the collection of shared accessories is only 3%, if other accessories are sold, it can bring a lot of income. Stardust selected more than 100 pieces of spaceship accessories from 337 other types, and he was going to take them to the city to sell them. Of course, Xingchen's own small backpack would definitely not be able to carry it, but who let him have rhubarb? The storage space for rhubarb is more than 10 cubic meters, and the hundreds of accessories are not too big, and the space for putting rhubarb is not full. It's not that Stardust doesn't want to sell more, it's just that this thing also has a market saturation. You sell too many accessories, and the market can't digest them, so the price will drop to ridiculously low. At that time, even if you sell twice as many accessories, you will receive about the same amount of money, so why bother to sell so much? On the morning of the school day, Xingchen asked Dang Dang to drive the suspension car to the commuting point of the waste station according to the old habit. Then I took the commuter car to the city. Fly from where your commuter parked to school or on a skateboard. The situation is similar to the last time I came to school, but this time there are more than 100 spaceship accessories in the rhubarb space. With these accessories, Stardust doesn't have to worry about living expenses this month. But the most important thing is to eat breakfast. Stardust only has less than 100 RALs in his pocket at this time, but at noon he can go to Gillen's store to sell some accessories, and then he will have money, so he still eats a spiritual meal for breakfast. The living expenses are relatively sufficient, so Xingchen decided to raise his own dietary standards this month and exercise well. Maybe this month I will be able to rush to the 8th human level. According to this speed, maybe by the time of graduation, I might have the opportunity to rush to the prefecture level. After 8 days of serious training in school, Xingchen took a day and a half off. He has to go home. The vegetables he grows have been taken care of by Hua La at home, so I don't feel at ease if I don't go home to have a look. In addition, there should be a waste transport ship coming these days. It would be great if he can catch up to occupy a piece of land. If he can't make the trip, he can also go to the old district to investigate and pick up some leaks. During these 8 days, Stardust was not all training. On a few days at noon, Stardust would go to Gillen to sell accessories with a bag on his back and a skateboard. Of course, Gillen also has some spaceship accessories that Stardust can use, so Stardust will buy them too. After several transactions in this way, Xingchen had $7,000 and 34 accessories in his pocket. The money from selling accessories is enough for Xingchen to eat spiritual meals twice a day for 2 months, so he is not so picky now, and he can eat spiritual meals when he should, without hesitation at all. However, Stardust still doesn't want to receive the common meal benefits that the school distributes every day. On the afternoon of the day he asked for leave, Xingchen took the commuter car back to the scrap yard, because he had set a time in advance for Dang Dang to come and pick him up from the station, and after arriving at the station, Xingchen took the suspension car driven by Dang Dang back home. As soon as he got home, Xingchen ran to the place where the vegetables were grown and checked carefully. The situation is not bad, the chain has not been dropped. These cauliflower flowers have already bloomed, and the thin buds with many seeds have grown on the stems. In about 10 days, the seeds will be available. In addition, the red eggplant fruit has grown to a height of more than 1 meter. Xingchen checked the information, and it said that this red eggplant fruit plant can grow to a height of 2 meters. But it's only 1 meter high at this time, so there's no need to worry about it. Wow, the technique of growing these vegetables is not bad, but the water stored at home has been almost used up. Xingchen took out another 20 bags of water from the bag and put it in the storage box. With this water, there should be enough until about the next time I get home. Because I came back to take the commuter bus in the afternoon, it was a bit late to get home. So Xingchen didn't go out to work, but took the more than 200 suitable small spaceship accessories to the warehouse where the spaceship shell was released. There is no change here, the small spaceship shell is placed in the middle of the warehouse. It's been a while since the two of them cleaned up the spaceship shell, and Stardust hasn't started to reshape the spaceship shell. This time, I just take care of it while I'm free. The overall shell is still good, especially the full hard shell is extremely intact, but the supporting structure layer inside is deformed in many places, probably due to some small explosions when it was burned. As for the anti-collision soft layer in the middle, it is useless because it is denatured by fire. Dang Dang, they mainly cleaned this layer last time. Come here today, the main purpose of Stardust is to mark the deformed parts of the inner layer, and give different reinforcements according to different situations. Generally, such super-light spaceships cannot have bolt-like connecting parts on their hulls, as such structures will disintegrate and shatter in the wave shock generated during acceleration. Generally, all parts of this type of spacecraft are directly fused, whether it is high-temperature fusion or high-frequency vibration extrusion fusion. Anyway, the main requirement is to fuse these parts into one. The Stardust enters the interior of the spaceship through the door of the outer shell, and starts from the front, and observes and records the deformed places little by little. In addition, abnormal conditions such as high temperature also cause the performance of some places in the middle to deteriorate, and these also need to be recorded. Of course, there is no need for Xingchen to memorize all these things that need to be recorded. Anyway, with the help of Da Huang, he will write down exactly where there are problems. Those deformed places, if they can be repaired, it is natural to let them deal with sheet metal. There are still some places that cannot be trimmed, plus some parts with poor performance, you need to cut them off, and buy some boards of the same quality to reshape and fuse them. These metal sheets that need to be purchased are not cheap, but fortunately, there are such things for sale at the scrap station. Apart from the high price, there are no other quality problems. One of Stardust's tasks today is to calculate the size of the metal sheet that needs to be purchased according to the parts that need to be replaced. After the Stardust has passed from the bow to the stern, the number of plates that need to be purchased is already there. In addition, the parts that need sheet metal have also been sent by Rhubarb to Dang Dang. After a busy night tonight, these parts can be repaired. When Stardust buys back the boards from the scrapyard, those places that need to be replaced can be repaired. After planning the repair plan for the spaceship, Stardust took out some accessories from Rhubarb Space. This is a trade-in from Gilead. There are more than 200 accessories on the suspension car, these are harvested a while ago. Stardust asked Dang Dang to sort these accessories and place them on the shelves around the warehouse. Of course, these accessories are still far behind, but after the accessories are collected, it is time for the small spaceship to start assembling. After arranging the maintenance, Xingchen returned home and began to eat and sleep. In the early morning of the next day, Xingchen brought the younger brothers to the storage area early. It's just that there is no time to catch up. The waste transport ship came only the day before yesterday. I'm afraid it won't be able to keep up with the land occupation in the past few days. No way, Xingchen had no choice but to say hello to a few people he knew well, and asked them to keep the spaceship accessories they used. Then Xingchen took his younger brother to the storage area where he went last time. Except for the area occupied by Stardust, which is relatively clean, there are more or less things left in the sites occupied by other people. These are the goals of Stardust. Anyway, he has a Rhubarb probe, as long as he can find any accessories that can be used, he will find them. This area kept Stardust busy for a long time, and then he went directly to the scrapyard. The number of boards needed was calculated yesterday, and Stardust is going to buy it back today. Calculated according to the required area, Stardust needs to buy 5,700 RAL boards. These boards are about 18 square meters. Expensive is a bit expensive, but it needs to be used on the spacecraft, and there is no way to save these. After purchasing, Stardust is poor again. The sad Xingchen brought his little brothers back home. I'm sad not because I spent money, but because today's harvest is relatively average. I only found 52 accessories, of which 13 are common accessories. Pure metal is only more than 20 kilograms. Talk is better than nothing. After the vacation is over, it's time for Stardust to go back to school. This time, Xingchen returned to school with about 80 inappropriate accessories. He plans to sell these accessories slowly. A few days ago, there were nearly 100 spaceship accessories, which made Gilander a little annoyed. If Xingchen was not young and could speak, the other party would not know the latter accessories. Wanted. This time, Xingchen asked the acquainted scavengers for the addresses of 2 black shops, and was going to test the waters in new places. At school, Stardust is still the old rule, a spiritual meal in the morning and evening to ensure the energy supply of the body. Although the original price of thousands of RALs has shrunk a lot because it cost 5,700 RALs to buy materials, but just go to the black shop to sell some things in the past few days, and the Lars in the pocket will increase again, so Stardust is not too sparing. The school's training schedule is still the same as before. Recently, Stardust's strength has been improved. Although it is not yet level 8, it is not far away, and the combat power has improved faster. Now I will fight Manhwa and the others. Xingqian probably can overthrow them without getting hurt. He trained hard at school the whole day before, and at noon of the second day, Xingqian went to those 2 black shops on a hoverboard while taking a break during the period. The first black shop was not big. The boss saw that Xingqian was young, and after taking a look at the goods he brought, the price he offered was ridiculously low. Stardust naturally didn't want to sell it at a low price, and these accessories were not easy to come by. The purchase price here was half the price that Gylinder offered. Then sell it for a hair. So Stardust went to another store. This store is more reliable. After seeing the 10 spaceship accessories brought by Xingqian, they gave a reasonable price. Of course, this fairness is only relative. 10 accessories sold for 1160 rals. Xingqian asked them how much they can charge if they have accessories later. The owner of this shop is quite generous, and directly said how much they want. It's okay, I'll make a few trips in the past few days, and sell the remaining dozens of accessories to his family. Calculated in this way, at least a few thousand rals will be obtained. Stardust's pocket can be inflated again. It's just that the time when the junk transport ship came over was different from the time when Xingqian asked for leave, which caused Xingqian a bit of a headache. It will take 7 or 8 days to ask for leave next time. I am afraid that the newly arrived ship will be unloaded 2 days before Xingdu returns. But the arrival time of this waste transport spaceship is not fixed. There will always be a day or 2 change in the middle, and Stardust can't be counted as someone who knows when it will come. Thank you for watching Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share and subscribe. Have a great day.